Okay, so now we'll move on to the last and the third and last activity for our 8th Fusion tutorial. So what I want to show is first off, on my mini factory or Thingiverse, usually these models they've been found online. So in this case, we have a spiral vase, and these used to be very popular back in the earlier 3D printing days. But as you can see, this is going to cost you $2. And so what I'm thinking is, instead of spending $2 to make something that you can't even really scale how you like or change the pattern, we can instead not just save you money, but actually make you money by showing you how to create this shape using form modeling. So if I go back to Fusion, what I'm going to do is I'll go back to my form modeling workspace, and here I'll create a sketch, and I'll create a cylinder. It's just somewhere around here, doesn't matter how big, you can always change this. Finish sketch. We're going to create and extrude this edge here. We'll make it about this high, should be fine. That looks okay. And so what I can do here is I want to increase the number of faces. I only have these two edges, which makes one face. I'm going to drag down, or up in this case, and I'll just select it up to 6. I want 6 faces here. I also want to increase the number of faces this way. I can either select the arrow here, or I'll just type it here, faces, I want 14. So I'm going to hit OK. What I need first is symmetry. So again, we can always go to symmetry, select circular internal. It should hopefully let me do 14-sided symmetry. Yep, so 14-sided symmetry like so. And that I can see that my green line here is going to be symmetrical. That's correct. All 14 faces. Hit OK. And just like that, I have symmetry. Again, when you're extruding, you should also be able to create symmetry. If not, just add it manually. Now with the symmetry enabled, I'm going to select my edge. I'm going to go to modify, crease, and this will now give me a crease like so. So if you look at it, it's sort of like an octagonal or polygonal shape rather. So I'm going to hit OK. And so now I have my the starting of my vase. And so from here, what I want to do is I actually want to select just the face. And again, we can select this entire row by clicking the first one, shift, double clicking on the bottom one, and now it will select the entire row. And with symmetry, this allows us to, select the entire thing essentially and make things easier for us. What we're going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate something on the side so you can see. If I hold my alternate button, select the middle, oops, not that one, my mistake. That's the plain one. You can see how I'm extruding the face. So again, remember the alternate is kind of like an extrude function, right? In this case, I don't want it to be so high. What I'll do is I'll go to the top, and again, I want this to be extruded out perfectly. So I'm going to select, instead of that face, this face here. And the reason why is because if I go from the top, you can see my Y axis here, the horizontal one, is in line with this. And so when I do extrude it, so alternate, and I click the arrow, you can see it's straight. So in this case, I don't want it so much. I'm just going to pull it down. In this case, I've already extruded it, so I don't have to hold the alternate button. And I'll just make it something like this, just a little bit of a gap. For me, it's 2 millimeters, but any amount should be fine. So with this done, what we want to do next is we want to create that sort of sharp pointed edge, right? Because as it is right now, it just looks like a very tessellated block. And so what I'll do is I'll go into the middle here. I'll use the scroll wheel to zoom. I'll select the inner face of one of these, double click with the shift button. Oh, sorry, I can't double click the shift button because now I select all of it. That's fine. I'll just individually shift and click, moving my view as I go. Click, click. And now I've got the entire surface on the side here selected. I'll again go up to the top, hit my edit form. And what I'll do is I'll use the plane because I need a bit more of finer control. You can see I can move it, I can drag it in and change the shape. So in this case, I want my edge here, like this one, to be a bit more in the center. I'm trying to make a triangle. So if you imagine a line drawing across, there's going to be a triangle. I want it to be roughly in the center, right? So I'll hit here. That looks okay to me. If I want it to be a bit thinner, I can. I'll just go here, hit OK. And so now you can see I've got this shape on the side. Now to make sure that it is going to then become a triangular shape, and it's going to be hard as a beginner to sort of understand how I can create these shapes. You just have to sort of play around and experiment and become a bit more experienced. In this case, I'm going to select the face inside here where the basically the opposite point of my triangle cross, right? This curved edge. If you look from the top, this edge here, I'm going to select the faces along that. And so what I'll do is I'll go to modify and I'll go back to the top and I will just shift this in until you can see that I've got that triangular shape, right? Now this is very important because right now I'll just go overlap like this as an example. Don't do this. But if I hit OK, you can see there's some overlap. And if I try to finish the form, it's going to say no, there's an error, right? Because Fusion can't handle overlaps. So I'm just going to go to return, close the error box, undo. Again, select the faces. Oops. That I want. Go to edit. And here I will just again go and move this so that it is more of a triangular shape. Something like this. I can always check. This looks kind of okay to me. Let me just double check. Let's just do something like that. I think that should be okay. Looks okay. And here we can always check and make sure that our shape is actually able to be created. And if I hit finish form, there's no errors, that's good. I'll go back to my form edit. So I've verified. So it's quite useful to verify if your form model has any intersections or overlaps before you start to continue modeling. So in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to actually, now that I think about it, we probably don't need this face. So what I'm going to do is select all these faces. And I will just... Actually, I'm not going to select the faces. I'm going to select the edge. My mistake. And I think if I delete this... there might be some issues here. 1 second. Again, this is not always an exact thing. There we go. Okay. So now if I delete the face, there you can sort of see it's a little bit more of a nice shape, essentially. So I'll just leave it like this for now. Hopefully it doesn't break. Again, I'm going to check finish form, make sure that it works. Looks okay. I think it should be fine. So now what we want to do is we want to click on the middle and highlight the middle edge. And what we're going to do is give it more of that curved shape. So again, if we go to left, similar to how we did with our earbuds, we're going to expand this out. Oops, sorry, not this one. Like so, using the middle because we're expanding from all directions. So we're going to expand this out. Just something like there. We're going to make it curved more, so don't worry about that. Gonna hit OK. Now, still in this view, we can always select through. We're going to select with our window the bottom edge, hold shift, select the next top edge. And now if I hit modify, you should be able to shrink this in as well. So we're going to just shrink it in a little bit like this, not too far. Hit OK. And now we want to give it more of that curved surface. So again, we'll do the same. We'll select this middle one. The two lines opposite the middle line. Go to modify, and we're going to expand this out as well to sort of give it that shape. In this case, I'm going to go a little bit under because I will then go back to my middle and make this smaller. Like that. Okay, so now we've got this shape. Give it a second to load. We've got this shape. This is what we want. The sort of shape. Why has it got this thing here though? I'm not very sure. Finish form. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes Fusion is a bit weird. But anyway, we have this shape. This is sort of our plant pot shape that we want. That's good. What we can do now then is essentially select the entire model here. So we'll click and drag to select the entire model. And we want to make this taller because if you remember, we actually shortened it by doing the edits. we can do this using the expand tool, the vertical expand. So I'll just make it taller like this. This is a bit more like a plant pot shape. I'm happy with that. Click out to unselect. And again, just as a good practice, just finish form, make sure everything still works. That's good. Go back to my form. And what I'll do is I want to add the sort of curves, right? I want to make it, I want to make these edges curve, but how do I do that? Well, a very simple way to do it for this kind of model is I'm just going to select all but the last row, and I can do this because I have select through enabled in my select, right? I think selection filters, I've selected all, so select through, I can select behind what I see. So again, I'll do it again. I'll select all, and the way to not enable that to not make the bottom faces highlighted is just to leave that half filled, and it should automatically highlight everything but the bottom face. So if this done, I'll go to modify, and I can't really see my tools because I'm in my left face here, so I'll just rotate up a little bit, and in this case I can see that rotation axis. If I rotate this, you can see it sort of spinning. So I'll rotate this to 40 degrees, and if you look at the faces below, now they've been curved in the way that I want them to be curved. Like this, you see? So they're curved. And now, you can always play around with the design if you like. I'm just going to stick with the one that I saw in the my mini factory model. This one, I'll give it a curve of 35, so I'm just going to work my way up, basically going from 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, etc. So I'm just going to do this over. You can follow at your own pace. And now I could always leave it like this, but I want this curve to be nice and straight, essentially. So I'm just going to select all the faces here. Again, hit your edit form, and I'm going to rotate this by 15 degrees. Okay? And now, if you see, we have our curved shape. So I'm just going to remove our symmetry. Finish form. And now you can see this has that nice shape that we're looking for, right? It's all curved and everything. So I'll go back to my form body. And now what we want is we want it to have that plant pot shape on the bottom, right? There are many ways you can try to do it, similar to how the pumpkin filling stuff. I find that with surfaces, it's a lot easier to work with those rather than with the solid body modeling itself. If I finish the form, you can see I've got my surfaces. But remember, this isn't a body, this is a surface. So if I were to delete this face here, let's just say, you've got this shape like so. Now, what I can do is I want to basically keep all the geometry as much as I want. If I were to 3D print this, so let's assume we're going to 3D print it, I can just select the faces. And again, I need to be in the surface modeling because I'm working with surface, just noticed. I'll select all these faces on the bottom. Delete. And now we have our, essentially just a single surface here on the bottom. If I go to patch, and I select this edge, you can see now that it's going to give me a surface that connects to all of the edges that I've selected here. I'll hit OK. And now I see I've got a nice flat surface on the bottom. I'm going to go back up. And in this case, what I'll do is I'll do the same thing. I'll delete everything here. Once again, I'll press delete. It should delete the faces for me. And what I'll do is I'll just go and patch this up as well. Okay, and if we want to make this a solid body, what can we do? Boundary fill, or just simply stitch. Select all, stitch, and we have now our body. So now let's just try this. I want to show you something cool that you can do in Cura. Is we can save this as a mesh, save it as STL, that's fine. Hi, I'll just save this as vase, and I'll name this Spiralised. You'll see what I'm doing later. And so the reason I've left this as a solid body is because in Cura there is a function called Spiralised Outer Contour, and this will let you have a vase without having to actually model it. Because right now, if we were to say let's just say we create a sketch, you could do it this way if you like. Hang on, so we'll finish sketch, extrude this, and then you also have a vase if you want, but then now this isn't the same profile as this. We open our vase Spiralised, you can see this is a solid body. So we go down all the way to special modes, Spiralised Outer Contour, hit that. Gonna hit slice, and hopefully it should let us slice this now. Preview, and as you can see, what it's done is it's created our bottom, right? And as it's printing, it's going to print only the outer wall, but without any z-hopping or whatever. It's just going to keep going up in a spiral, essentially, right? You can see here the path is just going to spiral there, move up, as in up one layer, and then continue the path until you have the entire body like so. And again, you can always adjust the settings to make it thicker or whatever, but this is just something you can do in Cura with your solid body. So depending on what you're printing, you're making your model for, you may want to, adjust the kind of geometry that you have inside it. And so now let's just say we want this to actually have a thickness and not spiralize the outer contour. Let's say, what was the suggestion? We shell it, right? Yep. So we go here, we're going to select shell, and we want it to be hollow, so we'll select the top one, right? We're cutting out of this. And we'll just give this a 3mm shell, right? We can't, you see.
Why?
Oh, it's crashed. See? So we can't, basically. Or if it does, yeah, but it looks horrible. This is not what we want, right?
Because of the internal geometry.
Yeah, so we sometimes things seem like, oh, we can just do it that way. Well, no, you can't actually just do it that way, you see. So in this case, if we actually want to shell it, what do you think we can do? So the way we can actually do something similar with the spiralized outer contour, but with a solid body, is what we'll do first is go back to our form model here, like so. So I've just double clicked and gone back to the form model. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish form. This will allow me to go into the surface workspace, and I'll patch. And what I'll do is I'll patch just the bottom edge here, like so. So I'm going to hit OK. And now remember, these are two separate surfaces, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch these two together. Hit OK. And now with this done, we can go to the thicken command, and I'll do so by using the S shortcut. I'll select thicken. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the entire thing. Just note that don't select the face. I find if you select the edge here, it selects everything all together. It's sort of weird. I don't know why Fusion does this, but it seems to work. So I'm just going to select 3mm, that's fine. Hit OK. And what you can see here now is that we have our vase, and if you go into section analysis, so section analysis, you can see that we actually have our vase shape with the exterior surface the same as the interior surface. Right, so this is a pretty weird way of getting around it. You can't quite shell. A cool little thing is that it does produce these little sort of edged ends of your pot. Now I won't lie, Fusion is very finicky with this. So what I would suggest is, if this does not work for you, it's always good to go back into your form model and try and readjust certain things, right? In this case, I find it's a lot easier to make sure that all your edges are they're manifold, and that they are not overlapping. Again, if you want it to look like this, then you got to use the spiralized outer contour. You can sort of see that it's only a single layer thick, right? So you can use both the slicing software and the modeling software to get the same shape that you want, depending on what the parameters you want are. Play with the software, experiment, but there you go, you've just saved yourself $2. And in fact, what you can do now is you can then go and say, hey, I don't want this to be spinning the other way. I don't want this to be spinning one way. I can just go back here. It might work, hopefully, because I thickened it. Thicken it can sometimes affect it. But say I want to go back the other way. Now I can create some really cool custom shapes, right? I could print this if I wanted to. And I don't have to spend $2 every time. So this is something in Fusion that's very useful, especially for form modeling. The reason why they charge you $2, in my opinion, is because people are very intimidated by form modeling. If you master it, you learn it well, you can create some very, very intricate models without using any sculpting like in ZBrush or Blender. And you can make pots like this or custom designs that you can then go and sell or just make for your friends and family members. So I find if you're going to learn fusion, if you're going to bother, and I assume you bothered since you've watched the tutorials, learn form modeling. Form modeling is an essential skill in my opinion, especially if you want to make this your career. And this would be very useful, especially when you have STLs that you then want to edit certain features. And that's the end of this activity.